Hi, I'm Scott Cosenza, filling in for Sarah Cowgill, along with Lisa Donner, Graham Noble, Dave Patterson, and John Claw. And this is The Conservative Five, a video production of Liberty Nation News. The great deportation is upon us. We've got Mexican flag-waving hombres fighting federal authorities in L.A. and other major cities around the U.S. Is this a Soros AstroTurf affair or something more genuine? Meanwhile, getting arrested in protest of some immigration enforcement action is becoming de rigueur for all the most progressive politicians, where arrested is the new black. We're a nation of immigrants, and we're a panel with an immigrant, too. Graham, I know you're here legally, but what about those who came with the tacit permission from President Biden and without a real legal pathway to residency? Are aggressive deportations consistent with your American values?
Well, there's a great philosophical argument behind that, which I know, Scott, you as a libertarian take a certain side in, and I kind of do as well to an extent. I think the backstory here to this whole situation, of course, is do governments, any governments, have the right to tell anybody in this world where they can and cannot live on the planet? Or should we all be allowed to go and live anywhere we like? And the libertarian in me says, yes, that's how it should be. But unfortunately, Western liberals killed that beautiful idea when they came up with the horrendous notion of the welfare state. Because once you've got a bunch of first world countries that will hand out free money and all kinds of government assistance to people they deem who are in need, then, of course, if you open all the world's borders, about a third of the population of the entire third world would overwhelm the Western world, and our society would collapse. And it literally would happen probably within a matter of a couple of years. So if we want open borders, we got to get rid of the whole welfare state apparatus altogether. And that way, then everyone could live wherever they wanted to live and fend for themselves, and it will be wonderful. But beyond that, people on the political left, the progressives mainly, have two particular beefs here. And of course, one is they want the illegal immigrants here because those immigrants, they're counted in the census. That makes a difference to how many congressional districts a state has, which of course directly reflects in the electoral college. And so it's an election winner for them. But also it's deeper than that and more insidiously than that. It is a way of actually destabilizing Western society, or they see it as a way of destabilizing Western society. So I think you got those two things. Should we be forcibly mass deporting people? I believe in the current situation, unfortunately, I see it as not only legal, but necessary, even though, like you, Scott, in the core of my being, I want open borders. But, people have to take responsibility for themselves if they want to live wherever they choose. But in this country,
do you give Graham the let's call it the other side in terms of the big government giveaway, socialist pro side, more power by then saying, okay, you get to control these other downstream things if you're willing to, if you get the win on the benefits? Because I hear what you're saying. Look, you can't allow everybody to be here because we'll basically be bankrupt, if you will. But the choice is to then restrict the spending as far as this libertarian, by the way, third generation immigrant. So I identify and feel the issue both intellectually and in a very real, I'm very connected to my immigrant ancestors, and think that, when I see these people who aren't, the violent, felons type, I just mean the regular people who are just here illegally and don't have permission to stay and have been told to leave and they're getting snatched up, I see myself, I see my ancestors as people who could, that could be the same thing for them. They're looking for a better lot for them and their kids, and we're the best choice they had. So they came here, and it does kind of kill me a little bit to see them snatched up and sent away.
But I think the problem, you're equating people who came to this country maybe turn of the 20th century who really wanted to make a better life for themselves with a lot of people who come here with rap sheets, felonies, they commit. I think the people that Homan is after are the people that are doing our society harm, not the people that are picking the vegetables.
Well, apparently that's recently what Trump was saying, that they're going to focus less on going after the people who are out there picking the fruit and doing their, being
Exactly.
essentially are performing indentured labor, indentured servitude almost. I mean, these people are practically slaves, which is a whole other issue that I've got with the whole illegal immigrant thing. But yeah, and I believe that we should be absolutely prioritizing the actual criminals. If I was born into a poor family in Guatemala, I probably would have crossed the border into the United States by the time I was a teenager.
Well, that's what they're doing. They're prioritizing this. They're sending back the ones that are, committing.
I empathize with these people, but I just still come back to the thing where, anybody who's in this country illegally should certainly not be receiving a single penny in any form of government assistance whatsoever. If they're even if they're here illegally, if they can actually fend for themselves and be self-sufficient and feed themselves and their families, and even pay taxes out of their paychecks, then not that I'm a big believer in income taxes anyway, but
That's the thing, right?
but if they could, if they get, in other words, if they will put themselves in a position where the government will steal their money the way it steals Americans' monies out of their paychecks, then yes, I have at least empathy for them,
Yeah.
but you got,
just so you know, and everybody else knows, many illegal aliens do pay taxes.
that isn't true.
They're required by law to file taxes, and many of them do. I actually knew a lawyer decades ago who was like a volunteer at a farm labor camp to make sure that those people had properly filed, so that they wouldn't have the additional burden, in addition to being here illegally, of being in arrears on federal taxes. And by the way, I just wanted to specify for anybody who may not know, Graham, there's plenty of us libertarians who think that no one, illegals or legal, should be getting government largesse, and that's an impermissible use of the public purse to give away.
Oh, indeed, yeah,
goodies
that's,
to.
I mean, I agree, Scott, and I think it is true that libertarians. I mean, I am more a libertarian than I am anything else. I'd prefer just call myself a constitutionalist. But yes, I do believe in that there shouldn't be any government assistance at all. So.
Yeah. Let me ask John Clark a question here. I've seen a lot of these Twitter videos and YouTube videos of these arrests taking place, and it seems like a lot of them are they're actually positioning themselves at courthouses where they know people will be there for immigration hearings. And just to Lisa's point, it seemed like maybe they weren't felon types, but just folks who were not successful in getting legal residency, but they seem to be getting snatched up. John, do they need a judicial warrant to snatch somebody up? And what if they're wrong? What if they're, there's that famous Cheech Marin movie, was it Born in East LA, where he got deported as an illegal alien, but he was born in LA. Anyway, what happens if they get it wrong and they take the wrong person? Is there redress, and what's the scoop there?
We certainly seem to be looking at this from a libertarian angle here, but implicit in this conversation is the rule of law and what it is to be a citizen. And to your point, as libertarians, if we had no borders, we'd have no citizenship, so we wouldn't have the constitutional divisions that we have that do distinguish citizens from non-citizens. And in the screaming and howling against Donald Trump for deporting people without supposed due process, people seem to forget that the Obama administration deported some 3 million people, which, from what I've read, 75 to 85% of them did not have any so-called due process. People who are here illegally do not have the right to bear arms, I don't think. They don't have the right to vote. That's pretty clear. But certainly certain constitutional rights do obtain through our laws to all people, whether they're U.S. citizens or not. In the case of deportations, and in answer to your question, if they were to deport someone who's actually a U.S. citizen, yeah, they could be in trouble. But when you come to talking about the rights of illegal immigrants, what is their right, even if they had further rights in a deportation proceeding? The question is, are you here legally? If not, goodbye. So you would have a legal right to adduce that you are actually a citizen, right, which would be the purpose of these hearings. And if you can't prove that, then you really have no recourse. So I think in reality, if our federal authorities are doing their jobs properly, they neither desire nor will they deport people who are actually U.S. citizens or here on a green card in violation of because that gives them certain rights as well. And so those howling that, they're going to deport legal Americans, and some, I think it was Bruce Springsteen was saying they're deporting American citizens already. I don't think that's a real threat. And the other thing, speaking to Graham's point, what we see here and Lisa's point is that the gradation between criminals and people here legally has been blurred more and more to the extreme left. And polls show, as I've written here at Liberty Nation, that Americans are tiring of this and they don't want to support rapists and drug dealers and fentanyl dealers. And so, that expansive effort to open borders to all is actually causing more and more people to move politically in the opposite direction.
Yeah, we've seen that too with Hispanic populations included, which I know has surprised many pollsters. I will kind of we don't have to call it a correction, but a massaging of your point, which is that you don't just have to be a U.S. citizen to enjoy due process rights before courts. You can be legally here in many other statuses, or even illegally here, but that doesn't mean you have none of those rights. But let's turn our attention to those. Let's turn our attention to the political aspect here with an interesting clip.
As our law enforcement officers have been assaulted, they've been pelted with rocks and bricks. Their cars have been set on fire. Molotov cocktails have been used. We have seen people throw bottles and hammers at them. We've also seen that they have been attacked and verbally spit on or punched or assaulted, and it's just not acceptable. The Department of Homeland Security and the officers and the agencies and the departments and the military people that are working on this operation will continue to sustain and increase our operations in this city. We are not going away. We are staying here to liberate this city from the socialist and the burdensome leadership that this governor and that this mayor have placed on this country and what they have tried to insert into this city. So I want to say thank you to every single person that has been able to do this. Also, I want to talk specifically to the rioters and to the politicians in Los Angeles.
A half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your.
I also want to talk about specifically.
I was forced to the ground. First on my knees, and then flat on my chest. And as I was handcuffed and marched down a hallway, repeatedly asking, why am I being detained? Not once did they tell me why.
I heard Democrats were trying to fix a problem of appearing unmanly. Lisa, will crying over a nothing burger like that butch up the world's oldest active political party?
Okay, everybody get out the violins. He was
World's smallest.
Really incredible. That was something that's hardly ever seen. Of course, the most famous tearful scene by a politician was in 1972. That was Edmund Muskie, senator from Maine, and he was crying over
by attacking me,
a piece written about his wife.
by attacking my wife.
You can see why that would make sense, right? But there were two other presidentials. It was Ford. Ford cried over his wife, and someone else cried over their wife. But, it's not a good look for presidential politics, even though this guy's a senator. And, I just don't think he did well by starting to cry.
Why am I being detained?
So, Scott, I think, it seems fairly clear that Senator Padilla was grandstanding for public recognition.
No, how dare you, Dave?
The amusing
You think that was
part,
fake? I think that was real.
The amusing part of the whole thing was that Padilla had such immense influence in the Senate and within government that no one knew who he was. For all anyone knew, he was, the incident happened. He was just some oafish loudmouth attempting to disrupt the Secretary Noem's press conference. And when all the dust settled, it turned out that he was an oafish loudmouth senator from California attempting to disrupt Secretary Noem's press conference. Padilla was standing up for the most nonsensical position. Victor Davis Hanson said it best, really. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, he says, here you have on the streets of Los Angeles protesters waving flags of a country to which they do not want to return while burning the U.S. flag of a country they are resisting leaving. The Democrats are once again grasping at the losing straws here.
There's another thing that he did, which was increase the ignorance of the American population, which is woefully ignorant in this area, that somehow you now have a right to be informed of why you're being arrested. Right. And we see these videos all over social media where people, quote unquote, refusing to be arrested because of some imagined right that they have. But we're gonna have to leave it there. Panel, thank you. And please, aspiring progressive politicians, it's not civil disobedience if you pretend getting arrested was a surprise. It's fraud. In the words of Joey Swoll, you need to do better. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, and more. We're on them all. Liberty Nation News has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. And Liberty Nation does not endorse candidates, campaigns, or legislation, and this presentation is no endorsement. I'm Scott Cosenza. Thank you so much for joining us today for the latest news and commentary. Your choice for free thinking, free speech. LibertyNation.com.